What's happening? A good Monday morning to all of you. Thanks for joining me. As always, it is much appreciated. I hope every single one of you had a great weekend. If you enjoyed the holiday yesterday, I hope you enjoyed that as well. I read a couple of things over the weekend that I did not necessarily enjoy, and it left me with this one question. Are the Patriots overlooking a big issue with their roster? Now, I would hope many of you understand that I am not one to go crazy. I'm not one to go bananas about a story in the beginning of April, and I'm not one to jump to conclusions. I take my time. I try to be as patient as possible. I try to not get ahead of myself. But I was reading some stuff over the weekend that did lead me to that question. Are the Patriots overlooking a big-time issue? Let's start with Greg Bedard, my buddy at Boston Sports Journal. Here's what he wrote about Michael Onwenu at left tackle. I mean, that's not the worst idea in the world. You know he'll be at least a solid left tackle, and you let Chuck Okorafor and a top rookie battle it out at right tackle. Now, Bedard wrote that after hearing from Gerard Mayo talk about Onwenu as a possibility at left tackle, as he threw a bunch of possibilities out there. Mike Giardi, here's what he wrote, Boston Sports Journal, about left tackle. As for Okorafor, the Patriots see him as the front runner to play left tackle. Andrew Callahan at the Boston Herald. Here are the Patriots' best options at left tackle. Okorafor, in parentheses, who's only really played left tackle in the preseason. Calvin Anderson, in parentheses, who didn't play left tackle last year. Vidarian Lowe and Connor McDermott. Now, I have been pumping the idea of signing a veteran offensive lineman to play at left tackle as a bridge, right? I mentioned the name Charles Leno. I've mentioned Mekhi Becton. There are still guys out there that have played left tackle at the NFL level who are available for these one-year deals. Sign them, bridge them, move forward. That was my hope. I'm starting to run out of hope because Doug Kyed wrote this in his mailbag over the weekend. There is still the possibility of a trade or add in free agency, but I don't believe the Patriots are looking for one-year fill-ins. Now, there's still time. And again, I'm not going to go crazy. I'm not going to lose my mind. I'm not going to jump to conclusions. I'm going to take a deep breath here. There's still some time. I'm also very confident the Patriots are going to draft at least one, if not two tackles, thinking that at least one of them, if not both of them, could play on the left side eventually. But the question to me is, if you're looking at the draft as the answer to left tackle, are you going to be able to draft a guy who is a day one starter? Is that the plan? Or is the plan to draft a developmental left tackle? Those are two entirely different things. If the Patriots are thinking, hey, we can get a left tackle that could start day one, even at the top of round two, or maybe trade into late round one, which if you go back to my mock draft several weeks ago, that's precisely what I did. I drafted Drake May at 3. I jumped back into the first round to draft the young left tackle. And at that time, my guy was Amarius Mims. So are they looking at a young left tackle who they think can start day one? Or are they thinking developmental guy a little bit later on in the draft who they will develop as they start somebody like Chuck Okorafor? Those are two completely different plans. And if you look at how this draft is setting up, if you're drafting a quarterback at 3, which right now we would put the money on, right? We don't know what's going to happen. But if you were a betting man, a betting woman, you would say they're going to draft a quarterback at 3. So let's say the Patriots draft that quarterback at 3. What are you doing at 34? Are you drafting tackle or are you drafting wide receiver? Now, I think that answer changes from person to person. But if the Patriots are planning to go quarterback at 3, wide receiver at 34, then that would mean the tackle would be developmental, which begs the question, who would possibly be available? If we're talking about guys who are not ready to step in day one and play left tackle, and you're going to draft that person at 68 at the top of the third round, who are the guys we're talking about? Taylor Kyles, from CLNS posted over the weekend all of the left tackle prospects in this year's draft. Round 3, you're looking at somebody like Patrick Paul. That's the kind of level of player that you're looking at. If you're talking day 3, you're talking about the Rosengartens, who played right tackle in college. You're talking about Javon Foster, Matt Gonzalez, who might be an NFL guard, according to Kyles, and played right tackle in college. You're talking about Travis Glover, Tyler Grable. These are guys who could end up being starters one day, but you're drafting them to develop them. I'll have more thoughts in a minute, but before we get to those, I want to remind you, we have a sponsor, a brand new sponsor here on the show. I would like to welcome in Warzone Paintball and Airsoft. That's right. The Nick Cattle Show is brought to you by Warzone. 9 maps on 30-plus acres of land. We're talking multiple villages, a trench warfare map, and hilltop forts. They've got paintball. They've got airsoft. They've got kid versions of paintball and airsoft. Something for every age group starting at 6+. You show up with jeans, good shoes, long sleeve shirt like I'm wearing right now. In Warzone, they will handle the rest. Oh, and if you're new to this kind of thing, no worries. Warzone's rules are designed to protect new players. It's low key, it's casual, and the staff is top notch, boasting a 4.9 star rating online where everyone complains, as we know. Check out Warzone Paintball and Airsoft in North Kingston, Rhode Island, my own stopping grounds at URI down there. Give them a call at 401-228-6366. Again, that's 401-228-6366. Tell them Nick Cattle's show sent you. Weinstab jumps in and says, paintball is dope. Haven't played in years, though. Well, think about it. As the weather warms up, things get nicer. You want to do something on a weekend? Check out Warzone Paintball and Airsoft, new sponsor to the program. I appreciate those guys for jumping on in, and I appreciate every single one of you because we're growing this podcast. The community is really starting to grow, which means we have opportunities like bringing in Warzone Paintball and Airsoft sponsoring this show. All right. The question that I ask is, if the Patriots, let's say the Patriots, and I gave you all of these guys who wrote over the weekend, over the last couple of weeks, Greg Bedard, Mike Giardi, Andrew Callahan, Doug Kyde, every single one of them, they're pointing to Chuck Okorafor as the leader in the clubhouse right now to play left tackle. Doug Kyde says he doesn't anticipate the Patriots going out there and plugging a hole with a 1-year contract. So if we go off of that and we say Okorafor is going to be your guy right now in the room, if you go into the draft saying we're going to draft a young left tackle and you wait until the 3rd or 4th round to draft that guy, you're telling us you are drafting somebody who is developmental. What happens if you miss on that guy? Okorafor only has, you guessed it, a 1-year deal. So if you're going into this season with Okorafor on a 1-year contract, drafting a developmental left tackle, you best hit on that developmental left tackle, because if you don't, we're going to have this same conversation in 2025, wondering who is going to be the left tackle that the Patriots could possibly draft to start. And it's with that in mind that I bring up Phil Perry. Phil Perry wrote at NBCSportsBoston.com about NFL teams that have drafted tackles. There were 36 first-round tackles outside the top 10 in the last 15 years, okay? So Phil Perry writes, 36 first-round tackles taken outside the top 10 in the last 15 years. 10 of those 36 provided what Perry deemed to be at least quality starter results. 28%. So if you draft a tackle outside the top 10, the last 15 years, you have a 28% shot at hitting on that guy becoming a quote-unquote quality starter, according to Phil Perry. Left tackle. Left tackle is even tougher, as we know. So if the plan right now, if this is what we see play out, is Chuck Okorafor and throwing darts on day 3 of the draft, I hate it. I hate that plan. If we're talking about trying to move Okorafor from the right to the left and then drafting a young developmental tackle, crossing our fingers and hoping that that guy develops into a legitimate NFL starting left tackle, I hate that plan. I hate it with the heat of 1,000 burning suns. Left tackle was a top priority for this football team. It should have been the second most important aspect of this offseason. Quarterback 1, left tackle 2, wide receiver 3. And if you walk away from this offseason, again, we have plenty of time. We get the draft coming up. Don't know what's going to happen. But if you walk into training camp, and this is the plan, and you've got Chuck Okorafor on the left side, and you've got a 4th round, 5th round pick, even a 3rd round pick on the left side, I don't like it. I don't like it. And I don't understand why. You wouldn't at least sign one of these bridge veteran left tackles that would give you another option. I would feel much more secure if that's what they did. Why not sign Charles Leno on a 1-year deal? I know he's got hip surgery, so maybe that's why you don't want to do it with him. I'd understand that more. Mekhi Becton. Yes, he has weight questions. Yes, he's never truly fulfilled his potential. Yes, he's been banged up. But why not sign that guy to a 1-year make good deal just to give you a bit more of a safety net instead of trying to force Okorafor to the left side of the line? I don't like that idea. If you're drafting a quarterback at 3, and if you're starting that quarterback week 1, even if you're starting that quarterback week 4, 5, 7, 8, do we really want to go into this season saying to ourselves, hey, we drafted Drake May. We feel good about Drake May's potential. Or we drafted J.J. McCarthy. Or we did this, we did that at 3. And our plan going into 2024 is to have Chuck Okorafor on the left side, Mike Onwenu on the right side as starting tackles with a rookie quarterback. I don't think that's a great plan, folks. I would not sign up for that plan. And on the left side of the line, you not only have Okorafor, again, who's played all of 2 regular season snaps on that side of the ball in his NFL career. He played left side in college. There's a reason why Pittsburgh moved him to the right side is what I would say. But if you're going to sit out there with Okorafor on the left side, you also have to remember that Cole Strange is banged up. We don't know if Cole Strange is going to start the season on time. So already, again, if this is how it goes, if what people are writing ends up being the gospel, ends up being the truth and all that good stuff, if that's the case, and you have Okorafor on the left side at left tackle and player X at left guard, let's say, what is it, Leverett? Maybe that's the guy who comes in, right, and plays left guard if Cole Strange isn't ready. But that's the left side of your line with a rookie quarterback? That's super dangerous. Look, it might work out. It might. Anything is possible, as Kevin Garnett screamed to us at one point years ago. But if you're going in with Okorafor at left tackle and a backup left guard because Cole Strange ain't ready, that scares me. That scares me with a young quarterback back there. All right, let's jump to some super chats. Don't forget, as you watch, first time I'm saying it today, give us that thumbs up. Every thumbs up means the world. Trying to beat that algorithm on YouTube. If you're watching live here, as you are right now in the moment, give us that thumbs up. Every like counts. Try to expand the reach of this podcast if you like what we do. And I'll tell you, I'm nervous. We're about 180 subscriptions away from hitting our goal of 3,000 subscribers. We've got 1 week left. Not feeling great about it, honestly. So if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe, rate and review Spotify, Apple Pods. McGriffith, been a quarterback at 3 guy the whole time. If a run on tackle starts, I say take one at 34, but would there still be a viable options at receiver in the 3rd? Yes, there would be. If you listen, look, again, I don't break down the all 22 of every single prospect. I watch a good amount, a lot of college football during the college football season. I read a lot about these guys. I watch a ton of stuff put out by the Daniel Jeremiahs and the Mel Kipers and the Field Yateses and Joel Klatz. And I watch as much as I can. I try to consume as much as I can. What those guys will tell you, Evan Lazar, another one, what those guys will tell you is this wide receiver class is deep enough to get a starting wide receiver in round 3 and maybe even in round 4. And let's not forget, it's not just this class. We've seen a ton of wide receiver prospects drafted in the second, third, fourth, and fifth rounds that end up being legitimate game changers really early in their NFL careers. We could just look back at last year and say Puka Nacua is one of those guys drafted in the fifth round by the Rams and was unbelievable this past season. But yes, McGriffith, if you listen and watch or read any of those guys, they will tell you that they feel wide receiver is so deep in this draft that you can get a starting wide receiver in the third or fourth round. The question, however, McGriffith, is can you find an X receiver that will start for you in round 3 or 4? That's the question that I have. Because, yes, this draft is deep with wide receivers, but there aren't a ton of dudes who can play X, which is kind of big-bodied guys, get down the field, play on the outside, can, catch some footballs in traffic, those kinds of guys, because that's what the Patriots are looking for right now. They've got enough slot guys. They've got enough Z receivers, so to speak. They're trying to find that X. So can you find an X receiver in the third round, fourth round that could start in day one? That's a different kind of question. But as far as the wide receiver class as a whole, I believe you could find guys absolutely in the third round, fourth round. I believe that. Because let's not forget, the class is so deep, but you also have other needs for all of these other teams. And that's how guys slide down the board, right? You might sit there and go, how in the world did that guy slide down to round 3? Well, really, he was a round 2 talent, but offensive tackle was deep. Quarterback was deeper than usual. This was deeper than usual, right? And so those guys start to slide down a little bit based off of other team needs. Kyle Kirk sends in a super chat. Again, if you want to jump the line with a comment or a question, you can send a super chat. And you also contribute to the program, which I always appreciate. I see comments mentioning previous linemen drafted. This is a new O-line coaching staff and the first real one for New England since Scar. I believe in the O-line coaches, but I'm not tasking them with developmental mid-left tackle. This is something I actually wrote about, Kyle, at Boston Sports Journal last Friday. If you guys want to check it out, my BSJ column, by the way, is free every week. If you want to check that out, you can. BostonSportsJournal.com. And I wrote about how much pressure is going to be on Scott Peters, the new O-line coach, and Robert Kugler, who is his assistant. There's going to be a lot of pressure on those guys because right now, here's what you're saying about this offensive line. If the plan is Chuck Okorafor to start at left tackle, I think the Patriots are overlooking this big time. If the plan is Okorafor and a young developmental tackle, I don't think that's good enough with the resources that you had with this big of an issue. Let's say you walk into it, though, thinking that way. Okay, so now let's actually entertain what Scott Peters and Kugler have to do as a tandem with that offensive line. Left tackle, you've got a guy who's played 2 snaps at that position in the NFL. Then you've got a left guard. Nobody really knows if Cole Strange is going to be healthy. Last time we knew and heard and what we read was that Strange would not be back at the very beginning of the minicamp process. So is he going to be ready by training camp? Is he going to be ready by the preseason? We don't know. So now you also have to deal with left guard. Center's fine, David Andrews, home run. Right guard, you've got to continue to develop City So and take what looked like a moldable every week starter at that spot and get the most out of City So. And then you've got Owenu, who is dedicated for the first time in his career to play right tackle. So you've got to make sure that he's got enough polish on him. So, I mean, when you think about the offensive line in totality, that is a lot to ask from Peters and Kugler. I'm not saying they can't do it. I'm just saying if you're walking into the season after a 4-win year in an offensive line that was wretched last season, if you're walking into the season with really what is a question at left tackle, a question at left guard because of Strange's health, a question at right guard because will City So continue to develop and get better? We'll have to wait and see. And I would say less of a question with Owenu at right tackle because I feel like no matter what, he will be at least solid on the right side. But he's still going to play full time for the first time at right tackle in his NFL career. Those are a lot of questions, man. Those are a ton of questions going into the season. And I would just like a safety net at left tackle. I'm not saying to go out there and spend a first-round pick on a left tackle. All I'm asking for is to go out and sign one of those vet left tackles, guys that have played that position. Dan Hansen jumps in. Again, thanks for the super chat, Dan. I know today is about tackle, but I've been wondering this. Are there examples of top 10-ish quarterbacks who truly redshirted at least one season that still ended up as busts? I'll have to go through it. I would have to imagine that there's been at least a couple of examples of that, Dan. But when you look at the best way to cultivate a starting stud quarterback, if you draft them in the top 10, it has been proven that if you sit that guy, you have a better shot of that quarterback being successful than not being successful. So, but I'd have to do a deep dive into, quarterback and who sat the first year, who played the first year. I'll give you an example, though. I know Greg Bedard talks about this a lot with me, but Blake Bortles is an example. And people might say, Blake Bortles, he stunk. Well, a lot of people at that time, including Greg, thought that Bortles would have been good, but he needed at least a year to sit. In Jacksonville, that was the plan originally, and then they panicked. They threw him in, and he was never the guy that he could have been. So what I would say is, just generally speaking, I don't want to rush the quarterback. If you draft a quarterback at 3 and you feel like he needs half the year, a full year to sit, then I'm fine with that. Give him more seasoning. All right, don't forget, give us that thumbs up. Have a lot more to talk about here. Give us that thumbs up. We always love the likes. We need them. I know it's somewhat pandering, but unfortunately, that's what I've got to do. I've got to ask you to like the YouTube channel and subscribe to the YouTube channel, because YouTube will then send out our video to more people. More people will watch the product, and we'll build the community. Unfortunately, that's how this works. So give us that thumbs up. Subscribe if you're chilling out and you like what we do. Don't forget to rate and review Spotify, Apple Pods, and the Patreon page. Look, we've got a Discord chat tomorrow night, and starting today, every single podcast that we have will be on the Patreon page ad-free. You don't have to mess with ads. Check it out, $5 a month, Patreon page. We've got a bonus podcast every Wednesday that comes out. We've got a mailbag as well. It's patreon.com/Nick Cattles, Cattles. All right, after the huddle. What's up, buddy? What's up? Super chat, thank you. Shout out to you. Appreciate you. I tried asking Taylor this question. I'm guessing Taylor Kyles on X, but cornerback, strong safety, low-key needs. Who could we draft to fill developmental roles minus Duggar? Well, I would say first and foremost that when you look at strong safety and free safety, I would say that free safety is more of the need. That's free safety is more of a need. Strong safety, you're in decent shape there. When I look at, the idea of a free-ranging sideline-to-sideline guy, that's what they need. As far as cornerbacks, look, I'll pull up the list, because if you're asking me, guys in the 4th round, 5th round, the name that does jump to me right away is Sanderstill from Michigan. He's a local guy. He didn't test through the roof, but he is somebody who I think can be a starting cornerback in the NFL for a number of years. I've watched a lot of him. He made a lot of plays. He was not a full-time cornerback until a couple of years ago, so there's room to grow. When will he be drafted? He could go in the 2nd round. He can go in the 3rd round. He can go in the 4th round. He's more of a slot guy, but he's somebody that you look at. I know some people have talked about Kyrie Jackson from Oregon. That's a name that you want to look at. As far as safety, again, I haven't looked up, I haven't been studying 3rd or 4th round safeties in my time after the huddle, but I will look these guys up for you. Free safety prospects that you're looking at. I know one of them. I will bring up one name. Cam Kitchens is a guy, and Cam Kitchens would make a lot of sense because he played at Miami. So Alonzo Highsmith would have a lot on him. So if you're asking me my 2 favorite defensive backs that I could name off the top of my head that I would like is Sanderstill, who is more of a slot corner, played at Michigan. He just shows up. He impacts the game. If you look at his, measurables and all that stuff and his combine numbers, not going to jump out at you. But I think he's damn good, more of a slot, more of a nickelback kind of guy. And as far as safety, Cam Kitchens is somebody from Miami. He's another guy that didn't test great, but he's from Miami. Alonzo Highsmith knows a lot about him. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he makes plays on the ball. So I think Cam Kitchens is somebody that you would look at as well. Cole Bishop, a lot of people love Cole Bishop. He's out of Utah. That's another safety that a lot of people have talked about. So those are some names for you after the huddle. I appreciate the super chat. All right. So I have concerns. I have concerns if we're looking at a team that has Chuck Okorafor at left tackle and a developmental tackle out of the third or fourth round. I have concerns about that spot moving forward. And I would not be happy with that. And I think we'd be back here in 2025. We'd be back here a year from now on April 1st, 2025, discussing left tackle prospects in that draft. I don't want that to be a need in 2025. All right, let's jump to some quarterback talk. Young quarterbacks, right? You want to protect a young quarterback. I want to protect a young quarterback. Well, Greg Bedard spoke to executives after the pro days the past couple of weeks and had some notes at Boston Sports Journal. Here's what Greg wrote. I polled 6 personnel executives at the league meetings who I have enormous respect for, especially in relation to quarterbacks, to ask them who are the top 3 QBs in this draft. They were unanimous. The 6 people that Greg spoke to, unanimous, saying Caleb Williams is number 1. That shouldn't surprise anybody. Greg writes, and they were in lockstep that Jaden Daniels was number 2, and it wasn't really close. So according to the 6 executives that Greg spoke to at the league meetings, they said Caleb Williams, no doubt 1, Jaden Daniels, no doubt 2. Speaking of Jaden Daniels, Greg writes, special and rare talent were tossed around. And there was this from another executive, quote, he's like Lamar Jackson with better throwing ability, unquote. Greg writes, that's high praise from where it came from. No, I'm not saying we're. So 6-0 in favor of Daniels over May, according to the executives that Greg spoke to. Regarding Drake May, here's what Greg wrote. Opinions were very mixed. They all respect the talent, but his inconsistency seems to be a huge worry. For some, J.J. McCarthy was next because he makes better decisions under duress. The final vote for number 3 was 2 for May, 2 for McCarthy, and 2 said they would trade down. So, Greg Bedard spoke to 6 executives at the league meetings. All 6 said Caleb Williams 1. All 6 said Jaden Daniels 2. 2 said Drake May 3. 2 said J.J. McCarthy 3. 2 said trade the hell down. Trade down. Forget about it. Just trade down. I want to first talk about Drake May's inconsistency. The question that I have is how much is not fixable? When you talk about May and you talk about the inconsistency, because nobody will deny that there are inconsistencies in Drake May's game. If you watch him play, if you watch the film, if you read about him, he misses some easy passes. He's erratic with his accuracy at times. Other times he looks tremendous. So there's no denying, there's no debate. There's no debate that Drake May is inconsistent. But I ask why. And I ask if the issues are fixable or not fixable. To me, again, I'm not sitting here as a quarterback guru, but to me, I think Drake May's inconsistencies can be fixed. I think some of the inconsistency comes from the fact that he's 21 years old. I think some of the inconsistency comes from, as we talked about last week, he was running a new offense and he was handling his footwork completely different last year in his dropbacks than in 2022. So he was transitioning from one system to another system, and within that new system, he had to change his footwork. Not the easiest thing in the world. I also look at a guy that had to wait weeks. He had to wait weeks for his number 1 receiver to actually play, Tez Walker, because the NCAA was screwing around. They wouldn't make him eligible for the first few weeks. It was just a complete joke. I'm not saying that Drake May is going to be these guys, so don't put words in my mouth. But there have been a lot of quarterbacks coming out of college that have been criticized for inconsistencies. Too much risk. And those guys paid off big time. If you go back to Patrick Mahomes years ago, people were writing about how Mahomes was erratic. He was inaccurate. He turned the football over. He would try to do way too much, way too often. He was a big-time risk. That's what people wrote about Patrick Mahomes. Again, I'm not telling you that Drake May will be Patrick Mahomes. I'm just telling you this would not be the first time, far from it, when pundits and people writing about these quarterbacks would say that guy's inconsistent, and then you turn around and that guy within 2 or 3 years ends up being one of the better quarterbacks in football. A lot of people, including myself, said that about Josh Allen. I was scared of Josh Allen coming out of the draft. If you looked at his completion percentage numbers, if you looked at what he did in Wyoming his final year, he didn't look good. Major risk. Mike Giardi did a great job of posting Josh Allen's college football stats last week on the old Twitter/X. And when you look at Josh Allen, his final 2 years in college, his best completion percentage was 56.3. Somebody that did not come close to completing 60% of his passes in college football. And it's not like he was playing in the SE freaking C. He was playing at Wyoming. 56%. He had 16 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. He took 22 sacks. Giardi wrote, Allen's first year in the NFL saw him complete less than 53% of his passes and throw more interceptions than touchdowns. Year 2 saw a leap to 58% and a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. Year 3 was elite, so have the last 3 seasons. So you can draft a quarterback, and you could draft a quarterback high that has inconsistencies if you feel like you can fix those inconsistencies. You can fix the reasons why that person was inconsistent. And that's how I feel about Drake May. Justin Herbert was another guy who was questioned coming out of college about some of the inconsistencies that he showed. So do you feel like you can work with this guy, develop this guy, and fix some of the problems? I feel that way about May. Could end up being wrong. Let's also realize, appreciate, and acknowledge that NFL quarterback evaluations aren't very good. Like, none of us know. None of us know. You don't know. I don't know. The guys that are drafting these players, you know, the history tells us that quarterback is a very difficult position to evaluate and predict and project. So all of us sitting here saying, oh, Jaden Daniels is can't miss. Caleb Williams is can't miss. Drake May is can't miss. I never say anybody is can't miss, because you could miss easily at that position. We've seen it over and over and over again. Quarterback evaluations are not very good, and situations matter. If Spencer Rattler gets drafted in the 3rd round by a good team, let's say Spencer Rattler gets drafted by Minnesota. Rattler goes to Minnesota because the Vikings were unable to pull a trade off in the 1st round. All right, let's say Rattler goes to Minnesota. You got a good offensive line. He's got Justin Jefferson. He's got Jordan Addison, right? He's got Hawkinson at tight end. So when you look at it, it's Hawkinson. I'm having a brain fart. Hawkinson in Minnesota. He got traded from Minnesota. He went to Detroit. I'm sorry. He doesn't have Hawkinson. He's got Laporta. That's the guy I was thinking of. No, Laporta's in Detroit. What is wrong with me? Honestly, what is wrong with me? What is wrong with me? Minnesota Vikings. He was traded from Detroit. I got my Detroit, Minnesota, NFC North tight ends all screwed up in my head. He's got Hawkinson. He's got Jefferson. He's got Addison. He's got a good offensive line. If Spencer Rattler gets drafted in the 3rd round by Minnesota or the 2nd round by Minnesota, he might end up being one of the better rookie quarterbacks next year because of his situation. So we always have to keep that in mind. What you're looking at is, you know, the projection versus right now. That's the most important thing. The projection versus what he is now. You're not drafting Drake May off of what he is now. You shouldn't be drafting Jaden Daniels off of what he is now, or Caleb Williams, or any of these quarterbacks. You're drafting these quarterbacks with the eye towards the future. What is Drake May going to look like in 2026? That's the question. I know not a lot of people want to hear that because we want this team to get better right away. I understand. I understand it could be frustrating waiting 2 years to find that quarterback to be the guy, right? But nobody will care about that if Drake May does end up being the guy and he makes you a contending team year in and year out from 2026 to 2036. So it's a projection versus right now. I mean, Mac Jones back in 2021 was seen as the quarterback that had a very high floor. Some would argue he had the highest floor in that class. He looked like somebody who could be thrown in, start right away, and do good. And he actually did in 2021. He had a good rookie season. But then we saw the limit of his ceiling. That's a right now quarterback. So you're drafting these young players, especially at quarterback, for what they can do for you down the road, not necessarily what they can do for you right now. I mean, the next few weeks, I'll have a lot more to say, but I stand by my thought. I would love Drake May at number 3. I would love him. And by the way, the last note about the quarterback thing before we move on to something else. People who are going nuts over Drake May having like 3 or 4 misses at his pro day, but not even mentioning Jaden Daniels having 4 or 5 misses at his pro day, those people are they're just suspect. Those people are absolutely suspect. A lot of people paying special attention to May's pro day, saying, oh, he airmailed a couple of out routes, but have not said anything about Jaden Daniels missing 3 or 4 throws down the field. With an easier script, by the way, with about 20 less scripted plays. So I'm not telling you May's better than Daniels, Daniels better than May. But when we talk about things, let's be genuine about them. You can't mention Drake May's misses at pro day and not bring up Jaden Daniels' misses. Suspect. Like, subscribe. Don't forget to give us that thumbs up. Always love the thumbs. More thumbs means more eyeballs. We try to continue to build this brand. I'll say it again. Trying to hit 3,000 subscribers. And the goal is a week from today to hit that number. I'm a little nervous. We're just under 200 subscribers away from hitting that 3,000 number. So we're going to need a big-time push. Going to need a big-time push this week. 7 days. About 180 subscriptions. Can we do it? It would mean the world to me. Hopefully we can get that done. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you're on Spotify, Apple Pods, roll on over to the YouTube channel. Give us that thumbs up and subscribe. Even if you listen to this on demand. Check out the Patreon page as well. $5 a month, $1.25 a week. All right, let's wrap up with this. Bill Belichick's book. Didn't get to talk about this last week. Couple of thoughts here. It sounds like it could be a book on leadership. It does not necessarily sound like a book that's going to be filled with drama. I'm not expecting. I am not expecting fireworks from a Bill Belichick book. I don't think this is going to be a tell-all. I don't think this is going to be a personal journals moment from Bill Belichick, okay? I just don't see it. I don't see Belichick ripping Robert Kraft from pillar to post. I don't see Belichick throwing haymakers back at the Dynasty docuseries. I personally don't think that's going to happen. And for a number of reasons. I mean, obviously, it's not really Belichick. That would be so non-Belichickian to come out and write a book and just drop bombs on everybody. That would be so non-Belichick. And, you know, Belichick, he also has a future in football. He's not done. He still wants to coach. I don't think it's in his best interest to go out there with a tell-all book when he still wants to coach in the league. That would be a terrible idea. You're still trying to sell yourself to teams in 2025, maybe even in the middle of this football season if some teams don't get off to a hot start like Philadelphia and Dallas. So I don't think Belichick is going to write a tell-all. I think it'd be a terrible idea for him. He wants to stay in football. He wants to continue to coach in football. And for your future employers, you don't want those headaches. The owner that's going to hire Belichick doesn't want to deal with, oh, Bill wrote a book and said this about Robert Kraft. No way. I just don't see it. I don't see it. It's not in Belichick's nature. It would be bad business from him at this time. If he was leaving football, maybe. But I just don't see it right now. This is somebody who doesn't want to do like a live in-studio show on Sundays because I think he's uncomfortable, throwing shade at players and giving you the real feel and honesty of a play or a player or a coach or a team. So I don't think it's going to be a tell-all. I do not expect fireworks. I am, however, all in on a Belichick book. Absolutely all in. Because no matter how you feel about Belichick towards the tail end, he is somebody who obviously has been incredibly successful, is viewed as the greatest coach of all time, and he managed egos. And I think if he's writing a book about leadership, I think it would be fascinating to read that book about how he managed the egos of professional athletes for 20 plus years in the same place, in a very difficult league to do that in the NFL. I would find that an intriguing read. And he's incredibly knowledgeable. So I would absolutely buy the book. I would absolutely read the book, no doubt. But I don't think it's going to be Belichick unloading a Tommy gun on every single Patriots player, front office executive, or Robert Kraft who has said something about him. I don't see it happening. I think Belichick would rather, frankly, have the bust without any issues. I think he'd love a statue at Gillette. I think he would love to be inducted into the Patriots Hall of Fame one day because that's a legacy thing for him. I don't think he's going to go out there and just throw a bunch of salt. I don't see it. I just don't see it. All right. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe. We're about 180 away from our goal a week from now. I hope we hit it. So don't forget to like and subscribe. Throw a comment in if you'd like as well. I always like to catch up with the comments, the YouTube page. Rate and review. Ratings and reviews are big at Spotify and Apple Pods if you can help us out there as well. And the Patreon page. Ad-free pods, exclusive pod every week for you. Q&A, chat on the Discord coming up tomorrow night. We've got mailbag on Friday. Select Celtics and Bruins live stream post games we'll do. So check out the Patreon, patreon.com/Nick Cattle, CATTLES, $5 a month, $1.25 a week. All right, that'll do it for today unless something breaks. We're back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Until then, thank you. I appreciate every single one of you as we continue to build this brand, and this brand is called The Nick Cattle Show.